All right, everybody. Thank you for making some of your time on this Wednesday afternoon, China time. I guess few people are joining us from Europe as well. So this webinar is going to be recorded. I am here with Justin, who is on Adobe Magento part. We're going to go through a quick introduction afterwards. We know a few people are running late, as it is often the case for this kind of event. Everybody's in a rush. But don't worry too much. This video, as I mentioned, is being recorded, and you're going to have the chance to review it afterwards on Adobe's website, as well as on YouTube, probably. So we're going to start today the presentation. So we are together with Magento and Adobe. IT Consultants is doing this series of 10 webinars explaining basically the Chinese e-commerce private traffic area and why Magento has a key role to play in this area for basically brands to have a direct connection with their customer and get the data in a very specific Chinese environment, as we all know. So we're going to review this in a second. So I'm going to start sharing my screen, and then we're going to move on into the introduction about both Justin and myself. So my camera is going to probably not appear for a while, but at least the screen is going to be here. So thank you. So this is, as mentioned, our session number 2. And today it's going to be a big focus on WeChat. As we all know, WeChat is like one of the key, if not the key application in China, and we're going to see how it matters in terms of e-commerce. So Justin, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you for introduction here. So let me quickly introduce myself here. So I'm Justin from Adobe Magento team, and my focus here actually is in China. So everything about China and everything about the Magento definitely come to me. If you have any kind of a question, let me know. So start to talking about Magento here in China and in globally. Basically, I will say most of the person who join this video definitely know Adobe and Magento for some while. And definitely some of the people already know for Magento actually, and global-wise, we actually are the #1 platform. No matter the numbers, also the GMV totally is also the #1 in globally. So Andrew, can you move to the second slide? So basically, since we are seeing that we actually have a lot of clients in there, we only put a few of the clients in these slides. Actually, they has tons of clients. If you are specific in some of the industry or some of the area, you considering that kind of business is kind of different compared to those logos in here. You definitely come to us to let us know what kind of industry you are and what kind of question you have. We can come up with more case studies for you to let you understand more about that. So one of the things that's in China, that we do have a lot of things kind of different there. So we can talk about more with Andrea later. So basically, when we are talking about the first thing, we do have a lot of clients in there, and we have been lots of big name to choosing Magento, and some of the startups actually also choosing Magento. So one of the key reasons here that like what we're showing here actually. Magento Adobe here actually is in the leader quadrant, not in the forest. And you're also able to find in Gartner or other analytics reports. We are also in the leadership quadrant. So basically, that's one of the things we see that the reason why we can suit up like startups, they just start their e-commerce business, or like a big companies, even like a Microsoft. They can also using Magento in China, globally, those things.
I think to highlight what Justin is saying, one of the key advantage, we see Adobe both for B2B platform or B2C platform is one of the top 2 leaders, depending on how you consider the scale. But one of the most important things that Salesforce is not here in China at the moment, especially for that e-commerce brick, Salesforce Commerce. So I think like in China, Adobe, if we look at enterprise level solution, Adobe and Magento is basically the #1 choice for like if you want to go for an international solution. So moving forward, so IT consultants that we're going to shorten to ITC for the rest of this presentation. So basically we're a team of 60 people working around 3 countries, so China, Vietnam, and Singapore, and we're serving clients in different various industry, a little bit like Magento when it comes to luxury, pharmaceutical, and the rest. And what we do for our clients is everything that is related to digital transformation, so e-commerce, digital transformation, everything related to data mapping and so on. So all those kind of things that companies need nowadays, especially when it comes to the private traffic areas. So in our first session, we reviewed what is the e-commerce landscape in China. We reviewed the difference between the public traffic and the private traffic. So quick summary that we're going to see this next slide, and how powerful Magento is. So if we need to sum it up, we see that the Chinese ecosystem is very different than the global ecosystem. In China, 22% of the revenues are made online versus 11%, 12% in the US. And then we see for search, there's going to be Baidu for Google, Tmall, JD for Amazon, and there's going to be different payments methodologies and different social media. And one of the things we've seen in the previous presentation is that forever, since 2000, basically the marketplaces have been dominant. So JD and Tmall have been like leveraging, 90, 95% of the market share. And this market share has lowered to 85, 80%, depending on what kind of figures you're taking. And what brands, what companies have started to build is actually sub-funnel. Because on the top funnel of the public traffic, they are struggling. They have very, very little data, and they don't have the opportunity to do marketing automation, real loyalty program. And so basically they are developing those sub-funnel, which are called the private traffic funnel, where basically we're leveraging WeChat, the WeChat ecosystem, social CRM, marketing automation, WeChat groups, or managing everything those WeChat work through different techniques with different sales associates. But this is all as well related to WeChat. So those are the things that we reviewed quite a bit in the section 1. We reviewed as well that Magento is a highly secure platform, can handle hundreds of thousands of transactions a day, fully compliant with the China cybersecurity law. This is one of the concerns we hear very often from the brands. Is Magento, China cybersecurity compliant? And the answer is yes, because it can be easily installed on premise. And Magento has a big community of developers in China and has a lot of projects. So it means all the APIs for Magento have been tested and interfaced already with Alipay, with the WeChat ecosystem, and already installed quite a few times on different servers. So it means that Magento is a China-ready solution. So about the speakers, so Justin had the chance to quickly introduce himself. I'm going to go through it very quickly. So he has 10 years of experience and has been working for several years before with Apple, and is now leading the effort for Magento and Adobe in China. And on my side, I've been entrepreneur, founder and vice president, co-founder and vice president of ITC. Been operating the company for 10 years, and several entrepreneur and part of different group organizations such as EO, French Founders, French Tech, and being involved quite a bit in the community as well. So the reason why we're doing those webinars is, first of all, to reveal how unique the Chinese market is. So number one. And number two is how, by using and leveraging Magento, we can bring ROI to brands like towards their digital transformation. And we're doing this for two groups of people. So obviously for the people that are experts in China, some of the things might look like, okay, it's a repetition from what could happen in different other workshops. But for the people worldwide, they're going to discover an entire new ecosystem, ways of working, mini programs, and interfaces that they've never seen in the past. So for the people in China, it's going to be good to rebuild and review the foundations. And for people globally, I think it's going to be interesting to review the China ecosystem. And obviously, some of the people are going to be more or less tech or e-commerce oriented. So some people might feel more excited than others on those. So we covered the first two sessions, and obviously there's a few more that are coming, including another one on Magento and WeChat, and then we're going to talk about social selling. We're going to talk about something more technical about building the cloud infrastructure in China for Magento, how to interconnect your global ecosystem, B2B, everything about B2B, and then we're gonna review a couple of case studies of like success case that we have built with Magento in China. So this is the plan for today. We're gonna review first the WeChat ecosystem, then we're going to dig a little bit deeper on how Magento and WeChat are interconnected, and as well as like what's next overall for brands on their digital transformation journey. So here is like WeChat has existed since 2011. And it started as like a very small application just for exchanging messages. And one of the things that made it so popular was actually the QR code. And the QR code is something that we're going to hear a lot, and this is something that is striking a lot of people when they come to China. Everything is QR code based, whether it's like how to add a friend or like how to do payments. Everything needs to happen on a QR code. So in 2011 was launched the personal account, and then you see that every year there's like 1 to 2 evolution that were, and those evolutions are basically like bringing WeChat to a place right now where it's not only people call it a super app, and like we can call it even like an operating system. A lot of people will spend their entire time, like right now in China, the figure is about 30 to 40% of the time spent by Chinese users is actually on WeChat. So there are 4 pillars about WeChat. So there's WeChat as an app, messaging. There's everything that is related to the mini program. And for the people who don't know what a mini program is, we're going to review it in a little bit. You're going to see with pretty impressive numbers. So 1.2 billion users for WeChat. Now we have around 800 million users of the mini program. We have 2.5 million companies that are using WeChat Work, and we're going to review what WeChat Work is about. And the last one is, the last one is everything related to WeChat Pay. There is around 1 billion transaction that is happening every day on WeChat Pay, and there is more than 800 million people using it. So reviewing a couple of those figures and summing them up, we see that there is like a pretty impressive amount of opportunities, with 50% of the users opening their WeChat at least every 90 minutes. I would say probably I'm opening mine every like 10 to 12 minutes. And people are spending 77 minutes a day on WeChat versus 22 minutes on Tmall or Taobao. So it means like there's an opportunity for brands to captivate, the audience whenever they're going to be on WeChat. And this is something that obviously, like during a pandemic and the COVID phase, this has probably helped a lot, but everything in relation to the QR code economy and doing everything, all the transaction, everything digital, there's a lot of reports, published this year and last year saying that all those transactions have been accelerated last year, and especially this year during the COVID period, with an increase of like 26% year on year, even despite a contraction of the GDP during Q1. So as we mentioned earlier, WeChat is almost an operating system, and it's continuing in that direction with further evolution. Every month and every week there is like an add-on to it, and it's something that is not stopping anytime soon. So here are the different WeChat screens. So we saw that there is like a chat, you get your moments, a little bit like what you have on your Facebook, on your Instagram. You're going to have your official account. You're going to have the access to the mini program. So the official account is the list of all the brands that you're going to follow. Then you're going to have the mini program list. You're going to have your WeChat Pay screen, and then like WeChat Work, which is actually a different application than WeChat, but we wanted to show it to you here. And if you get into your WeChat wallet, you're going to see that this is where, like you have a super app. Basically, you can top up your mobile phone, you can pay your bills, you can, like book, like a Didi, which is like the Chinese Uber, can book like your flight tickets and having your food delivered. So everything can basically be done on that, that specific screen. So let's review very quickly and with a quick animated video how an official account will look like. So, like you can search for example, like this luxury brand. And when you click on it, basically you're going to enter that brand, and you're going to be able to follow it. And you can access to basically different chats. And here's what we see, something that is happening through a social CRM or like initial message for, specific marketing automation, that potentially retargets a user and getting data out of them. So the WeChat service accounts, so you can basically doing some campaign on this, like this is something that used to happen a lot in the past, a little bit less right now. Obviously, you want to work on your company brand awareness. A couple of years ago, there was kind of like a replacement for, like a website. Now websites are again something that are existing, although mini programs are more like a must-have. It's all about product education, pushing everything related to the latest news, because you can interact only 4 times a month with your specific user. You can only do 4 pushes a month. And then we have the mini program, as we saw. And then in the end, the customer service, the contact us, booking an appointment, and like asking, very specific question. This is something that users are doing on the WeChat service account. So the mini program is like, so when you arrive on, like the page of a brand, you have the opportunity to access, like the mini program. And the mini program is kind of like a small mini app. So obviously we like to share, like the ones with cats here that are as well like e-commerce. But like here, you feel like you're on a website, or you feel like you're on an app, but actually you're still like within WeChat. And we're going to see in a little bit how we can leverage, like the entire system here, and how basically, what is the structure of a mini program. We just saw how to access the mini program earlier. We access it from, like the official account page, but to make it much more powerful, basically there's so many access points for the WeChat mini program. One of them is, accessing from the top via the drop down of the WeChat home screen. Then you can access them through, official account menu. You can access them by the WeChat article from a friend who's going to share it on their moment, for instance, or like a friend that is going to share it to you, from a QR code or from other sources. And those other sources actually now, WeChat and Weibo have a partnership where you can open a mini program directly from a Weibo article. So this is like an extreme, positive source of traffic from, like Weibo. A lot of brands are doing a lot of marketing on Weibo. So it's very interesting to bring the traffic from Weibo to a WeChat official account. A few weeks ago, it's been made possible as well to share, for users to share on their moments. And as well, we see in the third screen, WeChat Work, there's opportunity for people on WeChat Work to share with like a normal user on WeChat or to share to another user on WeChat Work. So one of the questions we receive a lot of time is like, can WeChat help with cross-border? So there's basically two types of cross-border. There is a cross-border where, okay, I'm a Chinese user. I want to buy goods that are stored, overseas and having them import. So that's not technically what we're going to review here, but more the opportunity for, like whenever Chinese users are going abroad, for like those brands to have the opportunity to have the users paying through WeChat Pay or scanning a QR code and starting to like have a deep connection with these users in order to retarget them whenever they're going to come back to China, and then kickstart, like that, transition towards social commerce that we're talking about today. So one of the challenges that we have seen, like on the session one, we talked about the challenge of remaining visible on Tmall and the fact that a lot of brands were struggling to have a positive ROI on Tmall or on different marketplaces. But it's also very complex right now for brands to attract the attention of users. Users are receiving hundreds of notifications a day, and like the push for the brand is going to be mixed at the same time, with all the conversation that you have with other users. So basically the opening rates for the last couple of years, but when we look at this report from Jing Digital and the Digital Luxury Group, we see that the opening rates in luxury brand or in other industry, has almost lost like 4 to 5 points, which is quite impressive. So I think that, like marketers needs to be very smart about it in terms of what kind of content they're going to push, how this content is going to be targeted. And so this is all the challenge. So coming on WeChat is not going to be an easy challenge. So there's a lot of things that needs to happen for brands to be successful. But an interesting case here when we're talking about e-commerce. So what happened during the last couple of months is that users were usually coming for company information, product information, event information, or customer service. But basically, for the first half of 2020, 45% of the engagement were e-commerce related. So that means 45% of the people that will come to your official account are looking for the possibility of buying something. So this is where there is like a tremendous opportunity. So to sum it up, WeChat is much more than a messaging app. It's an entire ecosystem that people are using every day. And doing e-commerce on WeChat has become, like one of the key funnel, if not the key funnel, when it comes to private traffic. And Magento, we're going to see how Magento can be leveraged, like within this funnel. Let's jump to point number 2, the user journey and Magento. So this is a graph that we've seen on our first webinar. So if you look at the right side of the graph, you're going to see the marketplaces, you're going to see your loyalty program, you're going to see, like your store POS. So for most of the brands, those are, existing assets, existing infrastructure, including the OMS, the ERP, the WMS, the CRM. A lot of brands have been investing for a couple of years. But now, like they are, thinking, how can I move forward with this private traffic area? And the way to move forward is actually to leverage, obviously, when your Tmall partner allows you to do this, but to leverage as much as you can the existing infrastructure in terms of order management system, in terms of warehouse management system, and to make sure that you're not going to have to invest too much in basically those new store opening in terms of manpower on the brand side. So you want to be sure that you're going to create your backend for e-commerce and then probably initiate with a WeChat mini program. And then in the future, obviously, if your brand is quite successful, or depending, obviously, if you're a B2B brand, maybe, like desktop might make more sense than WeChat at this point. But you need to go crescendo, one step at a time, and with the objective of ensuring that, your new installation will be able to be operated by the people who are currently managing all your order management system and warehouse management system. So if you need to have a look at this, obviously in the future, if your brand is extremely successful, you can think about, like DUI, you can think about, Alipay, mini program, or, other kind of front end or like in-store experience. But to kickstart, probably, WeChat, depending on the brand, will make most of the sense most of the time. So when you look at basically an architecture in the West versus as an architecture in China, you'll have your backend Magento that will connect, through API or through normal HTML, CSS with the browser or through, like a web app. Whereas in China, so the mini programs on WeChat have a very specific, like front end, which is called the WXSS and the WXML, which are variation of the HTML and the CSS. So this is something obviously that we need to understand. And WeChat has its own like ecosystem and its own APIs, and we're going to review a few of them in a little bit that needs obviously to be leveraged in order to make the user experience a success. But here's what we see on the right. Obviously, we can leverage the infrastructure that was built on the left, and adding to this, if everything is been done in a headless way or everything has been done through API, adding another front end that is going to be a mini program should not be something that will be complex. So here I'm talking for, companies that have global infrastructures and that at some point will want to leverage those global infrastructure and install them in China in order to serve the Chinese market. So Magento brings to the table a lot of things, and we have those two slides to talk about it. So more data control and that collection of data, an increased control of the sales and fulfillment flow, easy login, registration, especially we're going to see it with WeChat earlier on, and obviously APIs and interconnection with systems that are, been done for years and years. And one of the great things is that Magento has been here for more than 13 years. There is more than 300,000 developers globally expert on Magento, and there's more than like 3,600 extension on different marketplaces. And as for today, there's more than 250,000 websites that are running on Magento. So I think that, it means that it is a very safe investment. So let's review a couple of APIs here that are very helpful to make the user journey for the people on WeChat mini program, as easy as possible. One of the first one, obviously, when you arrive on a mini program is going to be everything related to login. So when you arrive on it, then, the first thing that you're going to be asked for is to log in on that, particular, mini program, and share as well your phone number in order to access that specific mini program that we see here. The second one, which can be very interesting, is to have the location-based services. So here we see, with one, mini program, which is kind of like a store locator. It's more like a warehouse locator in that particular case. But you can easily, check, what warehouse is going to be the closest to you. And this is one of the things that you have the chance to do on WeChat. And when it comes to e-commerce, you definitely have the opportunity to push, different products or different coupons to different people at different times. So if you think sometimes in the north of China versus the south of China, climate might be different. So this is something we might want to leverage. Then there's going to be the profile page that we see on a mini program. So on the profile page, you're going to have the opportunity to see the different page that you have here, including, the order details, the past order that you had, potentially store locator, could be put here, or customer service if you want to start interacting with your user at this particular point. And obviously for each of these, there's going to be specific APIs. So basically, one of the things that works really well on WeChat is the opportunity for, how do you say, any mini program, obviously, if everything is integrated in a proper way, but for all the mini program to make sure that the user is going to be able to retrieve the delivery information or the invoice information that we're going to see on the next slide. But the main idea behind this is to ensure that every time a user is going to go on a different mini program, they will not have to re-enter their address all the time. And this is saving so much time. And this is one of the reasons why often we can say that the user experience on the WeChat mini program can rival more and more the experience that you can have like on a Tmall and JD. Obviously, you want to ensure that like your shopping carts and the way the information is going to be displayed is going to be as close as possible to what the Chinese users are used to on those marketplaces, in order to make sure that your bounce rate is going to be as minimal as possible. The WeChat Fapiao is another one here. The Fapiao overall. The Fapiao is obviously the Chinese invoice that you might require to send along with the delivery. And the same thing here, you have the opportunity to store this into your WeChat app in order to make sure that whenever you're going to pay, you can pull this information directly and make sure that the information and the flow, the UX is seamless for the user. So basically, you can arrive from opening the WeChat account to adding a product in your shopping cart to paying, by just pulling the address, pulling the invoice, and just like with another click, this is something that can arrive the next day using the right courier. Here we got Shengfeng, but that's something that can arrive basically depending on the condition that you have set forth. That can arrive like the next day or the day after, like within, your house or your office. One of the things that is important to leverage, and that WeChat gives you the opportunity to leverage, is actually all the notification or the service messages that you have. So configuring your mini program in a proper way, you can send, maximize the engagement by sending messages for the payment confirmation, or if the order is received, confirm processing, ready, and so on. Or even if your shopping cart has been abandoned. So that's something as well. You can make sure to communicate with your social CRM if you have a specific social CRM or tracking tool that is going to be able to feed this information, back to your official account to do marketing automation in a proper way. So obviously, we cannot talk about China if we don't talk about live streaming. And so on WeChat, there's been live streaming for the few couple of months, and obviously you're going to see that it's very easy to integrate the live streaming function with here Magento, first of all, and it's easy to get direct feedback. And when we have a look at the size of the live streaming economy, that's something that is been growing like crazy. So we expect 130 billion to be spent in 2020. And basically for one of them, one KOL, there was 480 million RMB, dollars spent on that single broadcast. So obviously, one of the other things that is going to be important is if you have a chat system or different ways to interact with your user, you will want to make sure that you're going to integrate this with the different APIs and the different live chats that are going to exist. Here we're quoting two that are Grata and Livecom, excellent tools, and that are going to integrate very well with your Magento. Coupons are something very challenging in China. The user experience that is expected might not be exactly the native one from Magento perspective. but that's something that can be, with a little bit of work, customized. But obviously users, they want to have the opportunity to have multiple touch points, like online campaign. We want to make sure that we have the chance to drive, like offline as well, for the users to redeem them in the store. And as well, this can be coupled as well with the different loyalty program, for instance, collecting different loyalty points. And whenever you have, of course, made your purchase, it's going to be very important. Coming back to the initial slides, we want to make sure that basically the mini program in Magento is going to be well connected with, like the existing warehouse and the existing shipment conditions of the brand. So here, for example, like we're using Shuangfeng. And it's going to be important to integrate for the users to see from the backend where, is this tracking, where is this order, and for each, like for all the time, it's going to be, there's always going to be different ways to proceed. So this is going to depend a lot on, everybody's infrastructure. So it's going to be different for all of them, and depending on the quality choice and depending on a lot of different elements. But very important and kind of like mandatory to have this for your WeChat mini program commerce. And one of the last thing that is not mandatory when we're talking about, everything related to e-commerce, but it can be as well like user-generated content, like with the opportunity to have your platform a little bit more lively. Of course, you can control, that content and ensuring that, not everything is going to be published on your behalf. To make sure that you're going to respect the different laws here. So hosting in China, we have two leaders in terms of hosting here, which are Ali Cloud, Aliyun, Alibaba Cloud, the way you want to call it, doesn't really matter, and Tencent Cloud. And obviously, you're going to have AWS, you're going to have Azure as well. So all those systems will function, all of the system will work. I would say that overall the demand has been a little bit more on the Aliyun side. But basically, you're going to be able to do everything that you're doing on your Azure globally, or on your AWS. You're going to be able to do it in China with extremely good performance and things that are going to be, like easy to install, I would say. So to sum up, WeChat has a very large numbers of APIs that are really helping to build mini programs that are going to have a user experience when it comes to e-commerce that can rival Tmall, and at the same time giving the opportunity for brands to understand on 100% of the behavior and the data in order to make sure that they have the opportunity to retarget them or to have like faster routes to market and faster collection, distribution, and so on. So what's next? Here we wanted to do something a little bit light as well to see, like how, like those applications and how things are going to work, when it comes to WeChat work. A lot of companies have been talking about this. There's a strong adoption, but this is still like a work in process. So it's a game changer, but it's a game changer that has been, like happening in the last 7 to 8 months, I would say. So a quick review about, like WeChat work. It's been launched in 2016, and then it was not really adopted. Then it was adopted. And then since, like it was in competition with DingTalk. And now, like for brands, it's becoming a way for brands to really interact with their users. And we're going to see it in a second. But basically, the goal is to make sure that everybody within your company, especially all your sales associates or like BD forces, can be perceived as salespeople. So why does this matter? Basically, we see on the left side is, like we have WhatsApp and we have Slack. But we all know that those two cannot interact. Or like when you're on Microsoft Teams, you cannot interact with somebody on, like WeChat, on WhatsApp or on Messenger. So there is like clear separation in the West, like between what's work and what's personal. Now, if we switch to the Chinese ecosystem, so we've seen that WeChat is the #1, like social media app. We can do tons of things on it. And now we have the professional app, which is WeChat Work, on which you can have all your emails, all your contacts, and there is like thousands of, like apps and functionalities that have been developed on it. And everybody is like, all the companies are choosing either between DingTalk or WeChat Work. And the great thing with WeChat Work is that you can have an open connection and you have the opportunity to talk directly, seamlessly, between users that are on WeChat Work to users that are on WeChat and vice versa. So this is something that is, like very powerful. And if we have a look at the overall like ecosystem of WeChat here, we see everything that is going to be, like the front end part, the consumer facing part. And then in the back, we're going to have everything that is like WeChat Work related. And then we have all the infrastructure, security, AI part. But basically, all of this is somehow interconnected together, and providing the fact that you're going to have the right CRM, the right CRM tool, the right e-commerce strategy, the right social CRM, you have the opportunity to really create something very strong in terms of retargeting your users in a proper way. And so one of the things that was launched not that long ago is for any users on WeChat Work to have the opportunity to share on their moment. So let's say, you're a sales associate, in one of the luxury houses, and you have like 500 or 600 clients, and you want to share, like about that new equipment or that new purse. You have the opportunity to do this and to engage people using a professional account and not anymore your personal account. And it matters for several reasons. Like a lot of people have seen, like staff are changing from one company to another. So you want to make sure to prevent that whenever, like one of your people is leaving for another company, they don't bring the entire database along with them. And that's one of the power of WeChat Work, where basically you'll have the opportunity, we're going to see next slide, the opportunity to make sure to transfer that database from one vendor to another. So how, things are integrated, so you can have your e-commerce WeChat Magento mini program. You could see directly from, the WeChat Work interface, and you could share it directly with your customer. And this is one of the way you could do social selling. You can incentivize, like all your seller. We have set, different programs to have, like an incentive scheme in order to make sure that everybody who is going to share to different clients are going to be rewarded in specific way. And obviously you can share as well in, like group chats when there's going to be more people. So the functionalities we were talking earlier about is actually the customer asset retention and inheritance, which is quite powerful, where basically, if one of the salesperson is leaving, like the second you won't want to interact with them, you're going to have that pop-up message that is going to come saying that the new sales associate wants to talk to you. So this transfer is not automatic. Like obviously WeChat is going to ask you the permission to talk to a new person, and then you're going to validate, and then you're going to switch to the new person. But at least this is made in an official way, and this is not done personal account to personal account. This is done WeChat Work account to a WeChat personal account. So it makes it, like very official. And then you have the opportunity, obviously, if the user is happy about like continuing the discussion with you, to start their interaction together. One of the great things as well, you have the opportunity through, like single sign-on, for instance, to ensure that, like one of the, like one of your staff could potentially access, a mini program or an H5 on which they could potentially see either the CRM or the backend of Magento, where they could see, like the amount of sales that has been attributed to them because of their, like different actions. We can work on like specific notification and like seeing like the different orders that were processed. Question that we're getting very often is Alipay a good choice for mini program? And the answer is really going to be, it depends. It depends on many, many factors. But overall, like Alipay is like the second like biggest app after, I'll say like WeChat. So there's 1.2 billion users as well. There is so many different merchants that are using, Alipay as a payment system. But I have to say that overall, in the last couple of years, we have never had many requests to build, Alipay mini program. So there's some of them, but those mini programs are usually for, when it comes to travel, tourism, booking flights, or for Didi, or for, cinema, movie theater, or for like a big name like Starbucks, for instance. So most of the brands, they will find, like where their users are going to be, where they're going to do their, marketing, and like where they're going to be willing to find their users. And depending on this, they can choose whether or not like they want to go for Alipay mini program or WeChat mini program. But most of the time, like WeChat is probably going to be the better choice here. So before we run into the Q&A session, the key takeaways is that WeChat over the last 11 years has, improved at the speed of light from like just a messaging app to basically an operating system, and all the evolution that been welcomed really in a proper way. We're going to see one of the figure afterwards, but e-commerce now is not good to have anymore. That was the case in 2018 or 2019. Now in 2020 is the must have. It is so important, and I encourage you to review our first video that is going to tell you a little bit deeper why. And that's the third point, is that really Magento is, like the e-commerce system that is really going to help you getting the best out of your WeChat and omnichannel private traffic ecosystem. So in a few days, that video is going to be hosted on YouTube, and we're going to have two free 1-hour consultation for Justin and myself for people who are interested into building, like their e-commerce in China. So do not hesitate to reach out to us. So as mentioned earlier, now is the good moment. So those are figures from 2019. So in 2019, there are $115 billion that were spent on mini program. We're not talking about money exchange on WeChat. We're talking about the money that was spent in WeChat mini programs. And as far as we know, that figures needs to be, like officially announced. But it seems that year to date, that figure, $115 billion, has doubled. So that means like by the end of the year, the amount of money spent on WeChat mini program might be more like than 2.2 or 2.3, the current figure that is announced here. So in the end, it means that there is a lot of, people are spending 30% of their time on WeChat in China, and they're spending an incredible amount of money more and more on those mini programs that were just launched now 3 years ago, and that started to be used for e-commerce like really 1 year ago, mainstreamly. So I think that this is now the right moment for brands to diversify all their investment, and to ensure that even if they do like 15 to 20% of their digital revenue on WeChat, but at least they will have 100% of those data, and they will have the opportunity to kickstart a right conversation with their users. So Justin, maybe you want to add something to this?
So yeah, so basically from my point here is in China, we do see a lot of possible channels online, like WeChat as one of the possibilities here, and many people are trying to do, since it's private traffic here is not like Tmall, Jingdong is not like in a marketplace anymore. So these kind of ways to do things it's not only about to do e-commerce, it's also trying to figure out how these clients are actually doing things in your website. So right now for China, less and less people will going to using a PC to log into your website for sure, but they actually spending more time in WeChat. So in that way, it's really a good place to having more data from it. It's not only about the revenue at the current stage. So that's basically some of the things I want to add here. So when we going to the Q&A session, which I also see some of the question here. One of the question from Claudia is asking what elements actually using for live streaming the WeChat mini program would be connect to Magento. Andrew, would you able to answer for that?
Sure. That's a very good question. Thank you, Claudia. Basically, it really depends on your infrastructure and how you're going to manage your logistic. So you could potentially have, your live streaming without Magento. But a lot of brands, like depending on whether or not they have like an order management system, and then they have like Magento here as like one of the front end. But the order needs to be aggregated somewhere. And then afterwards, the users needs to be able to access a specific profile where he's going to see where his order is. So, like Magento is going to be kind of like the middle like ground, like between middleware between this, and in order to have this interaction afterwards with the users. I hope I'm answering your question. If you have additional questions, do not hesitate to type them here, or you can reach out to me privately as well.
Yeah, also let me add something here. So basically for WeChat, Magento, basically from consumer view, they are not able to know any kind of things in there. But actually those things which you doing like orders and the content of the products information actually can come from the Magento. So all things will go into the one single backend, like your website, WeChat. Maybe you have a multiple WeChat menu program. It also can be back to the same Magento. That will be some of the things that if you have multiple brands, that will definitely can help you to managing all these things by one. Yeah, another question here is definitely is actually from the Jeffrey. He's asking, are we able to share the deck here?
Yes, definitely. I'm not sure here, but we can send it to you, Jeffrey, by email for sure. So if you I'm sure you're registered to that event, and we're gonna make sure that we are reaching out to you to send you the details. And for everybody, so this video is going to be hosted again on like Adobe platform as well as on YouTube. So do not worry, you're going to have access to all those details.
Oh, we just get another question here from Avi. For TMO interface with ERP, such as SAP, is Magento can be functioned as OMS?
So, Justin, you want to go, or I can go both?
Yeah. Well, actually, for me, actually, it's more like it totally depends on what kind of function you need from Magento, and what kind of data you actually will flow from TMO to Magento, and that will be critical things that we need to considering before we see if it is able to using as OMS. Andrew,
yeah.
Do you have to add?
First of all, it's going to depend on what kind of access you can have to TMO. So not all of the brand, they have like specific access there. And then like, depending on the TP, you're working with some of the TP, they might have their own tool, and they might not want to share, like all the details. So, Magento has some elements of OMS in it, some bricks of OMS. The Commerce Edition has like a lot of like additional functionalities when it comes to the OMS. But TMO and the TP word is a very specific word. So it's going to really depend on what you want to do, how many warehouses we're talking about how many stocks. So I think, it's worth, digging deeper into this. But overall, most of the time, a separate OMS might be required as well.
Okay, the questions from Jonas is asking, what would you see a typical split of business between brand size, WeChat, Tmall are for a retailer, and how you expect that to be involved?
So that's a very good question, Jonas. Thank you for asking it. It is, each category is going to have, different answers. I mean, when you look at, the overall statistics of China, we're talking more about 85 to 15. So 85% when it comes to Tmall, and 15 Tmall, JD, and other marketplaces, and 10 to 15 when it comes to private traffic. For some very well established brand, this figure can go all the way to a 30 to 70 for the really well established brand that have created those digital infrastructure, including website and mini program, for a long time. So I would say that in the best word, because private traffic is something that is only starting at the moment, and as we saw earlier, the mini program have been here only since 2017, and really having the API functionality enabling them to have a great user experience only last year and the year before. So this is only the beginning when it comes to private traffic. So when it comes to brand sites, what we'll usually do with Justin is to advise people to start where the traffic is going to be. We don't see a huge amount of brands that will invest into a .cn. Usually, the first must-have will be a mini program commerce that is working well, with obviously, the e-commerce Magento background here. And if we see that this axis, this funnel is converting in a proper way, then potentially, kickstarting a website, if we think that a website, can make sense. But everything is, mobile first in China. So I'll say that, starting investing more on, a mini program, or more on the marketing to bring traffic to a mini program could make more sense than actually, building an e-commerce platform, especially an e-commerce website, especially when we see now with all the APIs that you have on WeChat, how the user experience can be nice. So yeah, I hope I'm answering well your question, and how to make this evolve. In terms of splits, we can have a separate conversation offline. But what we've seen is that there's a couple of things, having proper marketing automation, tagging, segmentation, having the right content, having the right user experience when it comes to mini program, and then, having specific KPIs on, okay, we have, X% of our revenue that are done here on that funnel of public traffic versus here for the private one. How are we going to incentivize people through, I don't know, private collection, KOL, KOC, or different group purchase here, to make sure that people are going to be willing to, purchase the first time. And once they purchase the first time, then we can create, this habit of purchasing here onto the funnel that you're, owning, versus, for the user to go back in a funnel where you don't have any ownership. So I hope, Jonas, I'm answering your question properly, and please do not hesitate to reach out as well, so we can have a talk.
Another question from Luis. This integration between WeChat and Magento works as well for Magento Cloud. Let me answer this question, as we actually have several of webinars happening. We do have explained some of the difference between Magento Cloud and the setup in China in the Series 1. So basically, one of the things that to talk about Magento Commerce, so the function-wise, it's 100% the same compared to the Magento Cloud. But in China, we do have our questions when we talk about personal information and the network security law. All data is not installed in China, and these data are not able to transferred to overseas. So that questions makes us not fully able to support Magento Cloud in China because we haven't have our cloud instance in China yet. So the way how we are doing Magentos in China is we do have on-prem solution, and that is able to install in our Ali Cloud, Tencent Cloud, or AWS China. All this is possible. So that's one of the reasons are doing that. So the integration here are 100% sure it will be the same. Technical wise, it's working well for Magento Cloud, but that's not the best practice or recommended for our clients using in China. Anything you want to add?
No, I think this is perfect, Justina. So the Magento Enterprise or Magento Commerce version or cloud, if it is the one that you're referring to, Luis, works perfectly in China, except that we obviously not going to use, like a Magento Cloud. As Justin mentioned, we're going to use Ali Cloud or Tencent Cloud. But indeed, those
Hey, Adrian, we cannot hear you. Okay, since Adrian here might need a little more time to try to reconnect here again. Let's see if we have more question here, so we can help to answer. Also, Luis has add questions here. Oh, also Adrian is back. So let me read the question from Luis again. For the new additional part is that's the question here is that's the why asking the question because the law data privacy situation. So basically better to using on-prem Magento, using Ali Cloud, for example, in order to make sure that data are stored in China. Yes, that's true. That's what we want to explain to you.
Yeah, it's not good to have, Luis. It's must have. So that's something that is I would say almost mandatory. So it's not a must. It's not a good to have. It's a requirement. To be in China, you want to do e-commerce. That's why a solution, Salesforce Commerce Cloud doesn't work in China, is because the data cannot be hosted in China, and that's really a strong advantage of Magento with the opportunity to be on-premise, solution. Obviously on-premise, but within the Chinese cloud. If I, to sum it up, if you probably understood. All right. I don't see any other question. So should we wrap it up, Justin?
Yeah.
All right. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for making some of your precious time on this Wednesday afternoon or morning for the European people or night for the American. Pleasure to talk to you. And Luis, thank you for your message. And let's connect offline for the people who need any help. We'll be happy to help. And have a lovely day. And see you for the next one.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.